Good morning, everyone. My name is Daphne Thomas. I'm the Executive Director for Communications, Marketing, and Community Relations for the college. And welcome to the 2020 Annual Leadership Retreat. I want to thank you for being here today. During the presentations, we welcome you to enter questions in the chat feature on the right side of your screen, as Alex said. And when it is time for the question and answer portion of the presentations, I will select questions from the chat to share with the presenters, and then they can address your question. There will also be an opportunity for some of you to come on stage, just like I'm on stage right now. When President Hall asks for volunteer table leaders to present ideas for their group, use the raise the hand feature on your screen, and we will call on as many volunteers as time allows. During Dr. Hall's presentation, she's going to do breakouts where you will sit with people at your table and discuss some questions or topics that she provides us, and choose a table leader. And when the time comes, your table leader can use the raise your hand feature. And also, you have received the program booklet that contains the bios of our speakers today, and as also along with a very important message from Dr. Hall. Again, thank you for being here today. I hope you enjoy the retreat. And now it is my distinct privilege to bring to you the president of Southwest Tennessee Community College, Dr. Tracy D. Hall.
Thank you, Daphne. I appreciate that very nice introduction. And I appreciate everything. This is a new normal for us indeed. I am really excited today to be here with you virtually. And we are in the comfort of our own home, but we are still able to come together to have a retreat. And so that's the beauty of technology, that we are able to continue. And that's been really the goal, is to make sure that regardless of what is going on, and COVID has really been devastating in a lot of ways and has disrupted so much of our normal life. And so it was important for us to continue as much as possible the operations of the college. And that included our ceremonies and our rituals that we normally have. We cannot be defeated by this virus. We won't let it stop us. We will just find a way to continue and to keep going and about the business of the college. And so this is what we have decided to do, is to have virtual events and lunch pool. Alex and your team, they have been phenomenal. I'm so impressed. I was so excited at the Faculty and Staff Awards event to be able to jump around virtually from table to table, and to we can all work the room and see each other. And so I wanted to do the same for the retreat. So again, thank you all for being here. Thank you, Alex. Thank you, Daphne, your whole team, for helping to get everything organized, Michael Boyd. And so I appreciate you all. And so without further ado, so we can stay as close to our time frame as possible, I want to just begin with talking to you about kind of a continuation of last year. Many of you were with us at the National Civil Rights Museum, in which we had the first President's Leadership Retreat. And now we're here virtually with the second annual President's Leadership Retreat. And what I wanted to do today was to really, as I did last year, I like to make sure that leaders understand where we've been and where we're going, and that everyone is on the same page, and that we all understand how everything is interconnected, because we get so busy and oftentimes it may feel as though we're going in a lot of different directions, but it's important that leadership understands that everything that we've been doing, it's all connected, and it all is getting us to our goals. And so I'm just going to kind of bring you up to speed on where we've been and where we're headed. But what I wanted to do, I want to save most of the time for my presentation interacting with you all, and for you to, I have a discussion topic that I want you to sit at your tables and talk about, and then we'll have time for you to report out. You can put information, your comments in the chat, but if you raise your hand, you will be brought on to the virtual stage, which that's pretty cool, I think. And so the audience will see you making your comments. And so I want to devote the majority of my hour that I have to you and to hearing from you. And so what I did was, in the packet that you received, you had a history of what we've been doing since 2015 with Achieving the Dream. So I didn't want to go through all of those slides that I went through last year, but I thought it was important for you to know. But you can read that and keep that yourself. And I'm just going to do some basic real highlights this morning, but then focus on the direction that we're headed. So without further ado, I'm going to begin my presentation, and bear with me if I have a technical glitch. We're not going to be stressed about that. Well, I'm not going to be stressed about it. How about that? Let's see. So from the beginning, I'm going to share. Okay. So let me know. Are you able to see my screen? Okay. Now, how about that? Are you all able to see both me and the slides? Yes. Okay. Wonderful. Wonderful. Great. Great. So again, little glitches, but that's okay. We're going to keep moving. We're going to keep moving. We will not be deterred, defeated. I can say that easier. Reimagining Southwest, from what to why to what next. So last year we talked a lot about our what to why, and if you can move to the next slide. And so this year, what I'm going to do is have a brief overview, review of our student experience design work from 2015 to 2019. Again, it's in your packet of information that you received, but I'll talk about the highlights, the what, our why, and then focusing on the what next, Reimagine Southwest, and then give you that time for a group discussion. So the what, the redesign, reinvent, reset the student experience. Many of you were here in 2015 when I arrived, and were aware of the Huron report that talked about some of the challenges that the college had been facing for years. And so in 2016, we joined Achieving the Dream. And what that was to redesign the whole student experience, focused on enrollment and retention, focused on improving our processes and procedures, and making sure that we took away those barriers that made it difficult for students to enroll. And so that was the focus of the redesign work in years 1 and 2 of our Achieving the Dream work. We then moved to focusing on equity and teaching and learning, and looking at high impact practices, looking at ensuring that we were making sure that our students were receiving equitable opportunities. When we talk about equity in teaching, and we disaggregated the data, we are a predominantly Black institution. And so our African-American students we see have not been achieving at the level that we need them to achieve. So we focused on equity in teaching and learning. And throughout that process, and we're still in the process of still further improvement, we've had some quick wins. And we didn't want to rest on our laurels. The work became difficult and even more difficult, because as you can do some of the cleanup and the low hanging fruit and you have successes, we still saw again that when we looked at the data, our Black students are just not achieving at the rates that we need them to achieve. And sometimes that can get really disappointing and frustrating when you have seen some success, but still see that you have a lot to do, even more to do to close those achievement gaps. And so that's why it was important for us to move from focusing on the what, so the fixing of the processes and the procedures, and to really talk about why we're doing this work. I still need everyone to stay engaged in the work, even though it's difficult, but looking at not just what we have to do in terms of fixing our processes and procedures, but what is our why? What is our why? So last year at the retreat, we moved into talking about the why. And our why is not just for degree attainment and just to brag about credentials. Our why is to help to move our students into a position where they can be sufficient, self-sustaining, and to increase their social and economic mobility. We talked about how a college degree or credential is supposed to increase mobility. But what we found and we know is that zip codes matter. We discussed an article that was entitled "Poor Kids Who Do Everything Right Don't Do Better Than Rich Kids Who Do Everything Wrong." And primarily the gist of that article was because they lack the safety nets. Many kids from birth, they're already at a disadvantage. And these are real realities that we have to really face, that even with all work that we are putting into making sure our students are successful, there's still some disadvantages that students will have just by the very fact of where they were born and the resources that they have or they do not have. We also talked about those systemic barriers and racial injustices that prevent a leveling of the playing field. So when people say, it's a level playing field, no, it's not. Because there are some, again, as that article talked about, and as we know, that there are some barriers that continue to remain in the way of people that have kept them from progressing. So that was our why. And so now we see. So last year we talked about zip codes matter, and we talked about the systemic barriers and injustices, and that was our why. And so we needed to focus on our why and to help students move along so that they can increase their social and economic mobility. And so now we find ourselves, the retreat last year was in June. So a few short months later, we are into 2020, and we see that those systemic barriers that we discussed, those injustices have been magnified. Who would have thought that we would find ourselves in the midst of a global pandemic? And so we've seen with the global pandemic exactly what we talked about last year, that there are some barriers that have further disadvantaged populations. So you look at the healthcare system as a system of where there have been some barriers and where it has been a disadvantage for some people. So you look at who's primarily impacted by COVID-19. Disproportionately impacting African American and Latino populations, disproportionately. So if in the past we have been able or have had or been in some form of denial about there being some barriers in terms of access to healthcare, 2020 has really shown a light. You're talking about perfect vision. It has shown a light on some challenges that we have faced that we really need to address. And that's our healthcare system and the lack of access to adequate healthcare for certain people, primarily people of color, low income individuals as well, and the health situations that occur when you have people that have not had the access to healthcare or quality healthcare, and some of those underlying conditions that have been basically running in families, and that have made people more susceptible to having a more difficult, if not deadly, outcome from COVID-19. We also, as if a global pandemic were not enough, we have the continuing conversation about police and criminal justice system and injustices as it relates to primarily African Americans and specifically African American males. And so in May of this year, George Floyd, and I don't need to replay everything about that situation and what we all witnessed with our own eyes. And I think that that's what was a turning point. We've been talking about it, and I think there have been a lot of folks that have said this is not the case, that everyone is treated fairly, everyone is treated equally. I think if you look at what happened with George Floyd, I think if you continue to say that there's no racial or criminal or injustices in the criminal justice system, you really haven't been paying attention. That's my personal comment, and I'll stand by that. And so with George Floyd, and I can go Breonna Taylor and Ahmaud Arbery, all of this, again, in addition to the pandemic and the healthcare system injustices, we have to face head on what is happening with police relations and the criminal justice system and the subsequent Black Lives Matter protests. And I'm talking about peaceful protests. I'm not talking about the violence that can erupt that I definitely don't condone. But I think when you have the protests, sometimes the violence that takes away from the messaging of what the people who have a positive reason for protesting, they're trying to make. And so I don't want to get distracted. I think that needs to be dealt with. And people definitely don't need to be tearing up things, because that's never made sense. And this is coming from someone who is from Ferguson. So I understand what it does to a community when you tear it up. So I certainly don't condone that. But in terms of the messaging behind Black Lives Matter and what that is trying to say, it is giving voice to a situation that has been around for years. And so how do we address that? And so we've had and we can point to what needs to happen with the healthcare system to change. And the barriers and injustices in the healthcare system. We can point to the criminal justice system and talk about what needs to happen and to change. And we do talk about that, and we will continue to talk about that. But what we are educators. And so sometimes it's easy to point the finger at other systems and to say they need to do this and they need to do that. But I want us to talk about the higher education system and the role that we have played in putting barriers in students' ways and the injustices that have occurred in higher ed that have kept some students out and some students from proceeding. And so some of you may be saying, oh, no, not us. We don't do that. Well, I would submit to you today that is not true. And so it's time to not just shine a light on healthcare and criminal justice. Let's look internally. And it is consistent with what we have been doing. We have looked internally. When I first came and we looked at all of our processes, sometimes it's easy to say, let's just fix our students and get better students. And so what we said was, no, we're going to fix ourselves. And we're going to fix our processes, because there will always be those external factors that we cannot control, but we can fix how we operate. Well, that's the same message that I'm saying today. There are those external factors. We know that there are challenges in all these other institutions with all these other systems, but we also need to look at what we are doing in higher ed and how we may have been, and in some cases have been, complicit in keeping students from achieving their goals and moving into being more upwardly social and economically mobile. So that's the history in a nutshell. Again, that's in your packet of information that you have, that I didn't want to spend a whole lot of time, because I could have spent a long time talking about all of what we've done, but I wanted to really move quickly to the what next. So we know the what we had to do was to improve our processes. We need to continue to do that. We know the why we need to do what we do in terms of making sure that our students get to be successful socially and economically. And so the what next, which is really a acceleration of our why. So our equity work accelerated. We've already talked about disaggregating the data and seeing that our Black students are not moving and performing at the level that they need to perform. We talk a lot about all the things that we should do. And so what next, the Reimagine Southwest is saying, let's talk more action. And I think you will see that it is really in line with what we're doing in society. People are saying enough of let's wait, enough of let's just, in a few years we can talk about this. No, we're talking about now. And so the goals of Reimagine Southwest that we have put together, and you will learn more about the work in the committee. I've asked Michael Boyd, our CIO, to lead this effort, and he has done a wonderful job organizing a committee of folks that are looking at all the various aspects of Reimagine Southwest, and this work will be presented to you all very soon. But I wanted to give you a preview so that when you started to hear more about it this coming academic year, you will know and will be able to talk to your direct reports or your constituent groups, because everyone at this event today is a leader in some way. You are a supervisor, you are a governance leader, you're a leader in some way. And so it is important that you understand what the Reimagine Southwest goals are so that you can help to communicate the message and help to lead us in this acceleration of our work. And so it is with more urgency that I'm asking us to look at what we need to do to, one, close the digital divide. How often and how long are we going to keep talking about there's a digital divide that impacts our students? Let's just do something about it. And you'll see that we are doing that with purchasing of laptops and making sure that our students understand technology. And I know for some of you, this is uncomfortable when we talk about being virtual. But let me give you a news flash. This is just how it's going to be. This is our new norm. And so we have to be ready for it as employees, but we have to make sure our students are comfortable with technology. I can almost guarantee you after COVID, whenever that comes, that's what you're going to see, this whole rethinking of how we work. And you're going to hear more about that today. So I don't want to get into that, but let's stop talking as much or have productive, constructive meetings, but let's have some outcomes on let's getting some things done more quickly than we thought we would have to get them done. Even as recently as a few months ago when we were in last year's retreat. It's blurring the lines between the college and the business and industry community. We talked ad nauseum about how business and industry thinks higher ed only does what it wants to do. Well, let's put some efforts in place to make sure that that's not the case. And we've already started to do that with our faculty externship program. Removing institutional and policy barriers that prevent students from reaching their goals. We know we do some things and we don't even know why we do them. We inherited a policy, a college policy. We have inherited procedures that we just continue to do year after year. And when you really stop and think about it and you say, well, why do we do that? Well, we've always done it that way. Well, does it make sense? No, not really. But we just have always done it. Well, we need to stop doing that. That is ridiculous. It's madness, it's insanity. And so if something does not make sense, just stop doing it. If something is not working, quit doing it. Let it go. And let's go on to something that does work. We don't have time to keep doing things that they're not working. We know they're not working. We're spending money and it's not working, but we keep doing it. Stop it. That's what Reimagining Southwest is about. Participating in courageously uncomfortable conversations about social justice issues impacting our world. We cannot act as though there are no problems. And even if you have not been impacted by it personally, it doesn't not mean that the situation or the issue is not real. It may not be your experience. And so those are the conversations that we really have to talk about, that just because it's not impacting you personally or you can't see it as a problem, it does not mean it's not a problem. It's not your problem, but it's a problem for somebody else. And so we have to have those courageously uncomfortable conversations and stop soft shoeing and trying to beat around the bush about things that are just, it is what it is. It may not be your ears, but it might be mine. Increasing social and economic mobility. What exactly does that mean when we talk about helping students to make sure that they can get to the next level? That means looking at our programs, our academic programs. Are we preparing students to make sure that they are able to have a self-sustaining career? Are our academic programs quality? Are we giving students the best that we can to make sure they're ready. It's kind of coupled with that blurring the lines between business and industry and making sure that our students are prepared. What good is it for a student to get a degree and then leave and can't get a job, or get a job and they're not prepared because we didn't teach what they needed to learn, or we're not offering the programs that they need to learn? And so that's exactly what we need to do. And then finally, it's becoming more efficient, effective, innovative, and entrepreneurial in our work. And that's what today's conversation will be primarily about with our speakers, being innovative and entrepreneurial. But we have to be ready for it. We have to be ready. And so that's the what next. I want you to get beyond your comfort zone and change your thinking as much as possible about what we've always done, and to reimagine Southwest. I'm giving you total permission, if you will. And I hate that word. I was kind of a rebellious child, so I giving me permission. But I'm warning you and encouraging you to think outside that proverbial box and be creative and be innovative, and not be stuck in how we've always done things. Because think about it, if everything that we've done has been enough to have 100% graduation rate and 100% retention, then I say let's just keep doing. Let's just keep doing it. But it's not. So again, if we look at our numbers, retention and graduation, then we know there is more work. And maybe we just need to shake some things up and do some things differently and be a little less focused on the status quo. And maybe we can see some phenomenal changes and reach our Reimagine Southwest goals and beyond. I see Matt, exactly, Matt, Alex, saying I'm giving the license to change. And exactly, I like that better than permission. The license to change, exactly. So we're at the group discussion, and we're running a little behind, which I tend to, I'm a former speech teacher. I say former because I don't actually teach anymore, but once you're a speech teacher, you are always a speech teacher. Let me just tell you, you have to have your intro, body, and conclusion, and you have to stick to time. So I'm a little stressed that I'm a little bit behind, but this is what we're going to do. I want you to get into your tables, we're going to go back into the tables, and I want you to discuss the topic, and I'll read it to you real quickly. We've done a great deal of work moving from what to why. Recent situations have forced us to once again examine how we do business. So in your groups, I want you to talk about two quick things. I'll give you about 10 minutes to do so. And then we will come back together. I want you to put in the chat your comments at your group. And then I just want because of our time, I want a few of you to just raise your hand, and you can come on stage and talk about what your group talked about. So the discussion questions: as a group, discuss what we need to do as leaders and as an institution to reach the Reimagine Southwest goals. And I'll leave those up there so that you can look at them as you're discussing. So what do we need to do as leaders and as an institution to reach the Reimagine Southwest goals? This is this slide, I didn't update this one, but the other part of that was, what do we need to stop doing as leaders and as an institution to reach the Reimagine Southwest goals? So remember that part as well. What do we need to do as leaders and as an institution, and what do we need to stop doing? And so it is 9:36. Let's go into about 9:46. If you could get into your groups and talk about that. And I'm going to just come around just as if we were in person and just kind of do what teachers do. We just kind of listen in. Don't let that bother you. Talk amongst yourselves. And we'll come back at 9:46. Good morning again. Hopefully you're back seeing me. I can't see you all though, but I try to make it to as many of the tables as possible. Let me know. Someone type in the chat to let me know that I'm back, that you can see me. Yes, thank you, Jeremy. Thank you. I see all of you, Ron, Jim. Oh, Jim say see ya. Can't see you back. But I know you're present. So thank you. I appreciate the feedback. So listen, I want to hear from you. We're going to go until about 10:05. And then we'll take a break at about 10:05. So we're behind schedule just a little bit, but I want to just hear from you. You can raise your hand. Daphne and Alex from Lunch Pool will be able to do their magic on getting you on to the virtual stage. And so let's just go. Let's hear from you. What did you all in terms of what your group talk about? What do we need to do as leaders and as an institution? And what do we need to stop doing? Jeremy.
Good morning.
Jeremy, where are you at?
My office at home is actually in my woodworking shop. So
oh wow.
Without a virtual background, everybody gets to see it.
Oh my goodness. All right. Woodworking shop. Look at you. You building things.
Yes, ma'am.
That's pretty cool. Go ahead. What you got to say?
Our table, we had three main things we talked about. First, focused around the equity and courageous conversations goals. And one of the things that Matthew Lexow in particular mentioned, that we needed to keep doing work around our data-informed equity, and the work that team has been doing to really dive into the data that they've done, that those practitioners have looked at, to do a very deep dive to learn who our students are, where are they coming from, what are their stories, so we can compare that to what our practices are, to see how those practices either help them or don't help them. And this example was high impact practices, examining high impact practices to see what they do, or not what they do. Do they help students, and do they reach students of color? Do they help support our Black students in a better way, more impactful, or do less students from particular groups participate in high impact practices?
Yeah, that's good, Jerry. I think I like that, because it seems like what you're saying is that we can't just become wedded to what we said we're going to do. So we have this initiative, we have this program, and whether it works or not, we're just going to keep doing it. So it's like we're going to evaluate if it's working. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, ma'am.
Good. Thank you. I like that. Thank you. Appreciate it. All right. Who do we have next? I know you all talked about a lot. I'm trying to get as many people. Raise your hands. Now nobody's raising their hands because they don't want to be on screen, but somebody needs to raise their hand. There you go, Sherman. Hey, Sherman.
Good
morning.
So we discussed basically to start that we really need to work, and I think we're doing it, but we got to do it more to make every employee feel valued and understand how their role is just as important as everyone else's role. So I may be in government affairs and Robert Jackson is in communications, but those jobs that are different, they all have one common goal, and that's to make sure students are successful. So you have all these jobs all out there, all these different roles, but they flow back to one common flow one pipeline, and that's the flow process. And
yeah, I love that, Sherman, because that is so true. I think, in higher ed, we have been very good at with our hierarchies and whose role is more important. But if you take any of those roles away, you're going to see a gap in what we're able to do. And I think that's another one of those things we need to stop doing. Even though we've always done it and we've always had, like, as they say, the big I's and the little U's, every person's role has a meaning and it contributes to the whole. And so we need to stop doing that. This is more important. They all have various levels of responsibility, but it doesn't mean they are any less or more important than the other. I like that.
Right.
Appreciate it.
And then you talked about leaders. What do we need to do as leaders and the institution to reach West? Let's just, we brought it, we were vulnerable. And I talked about me as a student starting out at UT Martin, how I did not understand what 21 hours was, and just putting ourselves in students' positions when they're asking questions. And remember, there was a time where you didn't know, and you may not wanted to ask anyone. And Robert had the same same situation where he had 6 classes and didn't understand it was too much, and he couldn't take as much as he did in high school or in college at the time and be successful.
That's right. That's so true, Sherman. We do that all the time. We use things, portal and credit hour, and we use all these fancy terms that we just learned last week. And we act as though we've always known them because we are so educated now. And we talk over the heads of our students and our families, and they're not impressed. Let me tell you, this different generation, they don't care about your doctorate degree. They want to know how much you can assist them. And so we need to stop acting as though we're so important that we cannot serve our students. Thank you, Sherman. I appreciate it. I'm gonna go to the next Jim. Thank you, Jim. Your table.
My table twisted my arm, so forgive me for shaking it a little bit. And made me raise my hand. But what we decided was we as leaders need to first and foremost get with our people and let them know we're empowering them to bring their ideas forward. And collectively, we develop what it is we need to do. What we need to do second is focus, as we discussed the term of Stephen Covey's book, Start with the End in Mind.
Yes.
The end in mind is, as you said earlier, we're about educating students, doing the best job we can. So what does our group need to bring forward in our new processes for achieving that objective and focus on achieving that objective?
That's right.
And thirdly, we have said that we're willing to or wanting to look at everything we can do to make our departments tie in. What do we do, which may need to make us all agents of change?
I like that, agents of change, and that's really good because you have to. You're all here in this room for a reason, because you already are. You just have to know it, and you have to act as though. And so a lot of times we act as though it comes and the actions and the ideas always have to come from a certain group. But no, listen, we have all these brilliant, I think we have about 1,000 employees. You know how many smart people we have working at Southwest? And I have a great leadership team in terms of all of my VPs. I can't say enough about each and every one of my vice presidents, the senior staff, but that's just a small group of intelligent people. And so as we open it up in forums like this, and as you as leaders recognize your ability and as Alex said, your license to change, I think that's where we see Southwest really take off. So thank you, Jim. I appreciate you. I appreciate your group. And they twisted your arm and you did a really nice job. Shayla, hello. What do you all have to say?
I had the privilege of working with some really, really brilliant women. And at the base of our conversation was, how do we become better stewards? So how do we better serve students, right? And the ultimate goal is becoming better advocates, not only better advocates for the voices inside of our department, but as we are leveraging relationships and partnerships for resources, also helping them to become better stewards of Southwest. So they can change the narrative and push the importance of what Southwest does.
Right. Absolutely. I like that. Exactly. That's what we are. We are stewards of the public trust. So Southwest was created not for us, but for the community and to serve Memphis and Shelby County. And so being stewards is exactly what we need to know, that's what we are. And even when we're making decisions, it can't be personally driven. Right. Because it's not about us. Right. It's about the state of Tennessee. It's about Shelby County. It's about Memphis and Fayette County, and Shelby County, Fayette County, and Memphis. That's what we have to keep in mind. I appreciate that comment. Thank you so much, Shayla. Terica, hello.
Hello, how are you? I was the only lady in my group, so my arm was twisted to speak.
Oh my God. I know you're going to represent well.
Yeah, preferably I will. So I will start with first our group discussed what did we not need to continue to do? And it was stated that some of the, in the past, it was very much so a think tank in terms of the environment, but we lacked on the implementation. So in terms of that information getting down to those individuals who are actually going to do the work, it stated that with this new license to go and reimagine who and what Southwest is very impactful, because those individuals who are working directly with the students now can speak very openly about what the students are communicating in terms of their needs, and also what the community as a whole is stating they need and the training that's needed. So our discussion progressed to, okay, what do we do with that now? So individuals who come to Southwest are typically individuals who are going to stay in our community. When individuals are looking to go to a larger university, those individuals will probably move away or get some other type of employment opportunity and take their skills there. But individuals who are coming to Southwest are probably going to stay here in the community and work, and once they are employed, stay there. So we have to look at the impact with those students and how do we get access to those individuals sooner. So making sure that we're engaged with the community and what they're needing, also speaking with the business community and what are their future needs, and make sure as the community college here in our area that we're merging those two, that we are having those conversations with the students and with the companies and with our community partners to make sure that that is very fluid in terms of how we meet the needs of our community and the businesses that we support.
Absolutely. I love it. Yes, Terica, that your group did a great job, because we have to be on top of everything and to know all of our various constituents. I love what you had to say. I love what your group is saying, that business community. And we are, I think, going back to the previous group that talked about and our stewardship. And so, yes, absolutely. Great job. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Yes, great. Who's next? I'm really liking this. Do I have anybody else who wants to come up on stage with me? Nobody? There we go, Brenda. Hey, Brenda.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
As a great discussion, and as Phoenix astutely pointed out, everything that we talked about just kept coming back to communications and the importance of communication. Things, that we're doing good, but that we need to be more effective. Some specific things, Dr. Hall, we think that it would be important for all faculty and staff to hear your message that you shared with us today to get them on board. We want to also, it was suggested that all divisions go through the ATB processes. When you look at the wins that we've experienced in some of the divisions, and we'd like to see that across the college. And then the continuing to share the data around equity. And I know personally in my role, just being able to see, like you said, the real picture so that we can align things. It's just really mind blowing, some of the data that we're now getting access to. And then on the stop our rigid thinking and the ineffective communication.
Great, I appreciate that, and that's it. You're exactly. Well, you're talking to a communications, couple degrees in communication. So yes, communication is key, because we can do a lot of great things, but if no one knows, then really are how effective is that message? Because we're not telling it. So I think our communication team, they have really done a wonderful job, but you could always get better. And so that's what they are getting and improving. But I am really proud of the work that they've done. Listen, they've kind of helped to facilitate this virtual world and making sure that we stay engaged. So I'm really proud of them. But yes, you are all definitely right. We all can do much more to tell the story of Southwest and to get everyone involved. And I think that last comment, stop our rigid thinking, that is absolutely right. We just get stuck. And as a community college, we have to be very flexible. I think so often we look at what universities that may have been around for hundreds of years, maybe, or at least 100 years. And so, it may be a little bit more difficult to change that long of a length of a history of traditions and rituals. But for community colleges, we're supposed to be nimble and flexible and the community's college. And we say that, but we're supposed to actually live that and display that in what we do. And so we can't afford to be caught in rigid ways of thinking. And that is, this is the way we've always done it. Well, we've not been really around a long time. I was a little over 50 years. And as a person that's in the 50s, I don't see myself as real old. And so community colleges aren't either. And so we can be nimble, we can be flexible. And so thank you, Brenda, and your group. I think we have time for, well, we're going to stop at about 10:05, but if someone has like 1 minute, and if technology can just not cut them off in the middle, but if I can get one more group, it would be just fantastic. Going once, going twice. Nobody wants to come back on. There we go. Thank you. I knew this way. You will be the final table to represent. The rest of you can put your comments in the chat. I'm trying to read and listen and talk and all that. And I just need to just look at one person. That's going to be Jack Taylor.
All right. Well, good morning, everyone. Our table really talked about examining policy. And not just examining policy, but correcting it. And the amount of time it takes around policy change. A good example, Cindy's been working on a policy for a year, and it's sat at PBR for a month, and it's still not changed. So we've got to really work on our speed toward innovation, developing our leadership culture, because everything impacts everything else. When we talk about equity and policies, we have a policy right now where our hourly employees cannot receive a stipend for additional work, even if they're doing next level thinking, critical thinking work. So when you challenge that policy, the pushback is that's the policy. So we've got to have a speed and innovation toward policy change. And that was the main focus of our discussion.
Thank you. And I was, it was a little difficulty for people hearing you because that President Hall person had her mic unmuted. Thank you, Janitha, for pointing that out to me. Anyway, no, but yes, you're exactly right. We just take too long. And why in the world do we just meet so much? We just meet all the time. And it's like we are impressed with how many meetings. It's like you're here, oh, I have meetings all day. Well, then that means you're not going to get anything done because all you're doing is sitting at a meeting. I'm not impressed by that. What are we doing? And when we have these meetings, are they productive? Are they for a reason so that we can get something done and not just meeting just to meet and kicking cans down the road? Students are poor now.
Right.
Communities are struggling now. And so when we say we're going to keep meeting and then in several months or a year, we're going to change. Well, how many people have gone hungry and jobless or underemployed in that time when all of us, regardless of how we may think about what we make salary wise or not, we do have a job, right? And we do have homes and we do have cars, most of us that can drive ourselves to the meetings. So we aren't as uncomfortable as we may think we are, but let me show you uncomfortable. And so our students can show you what's uncomfortable. And so I've said this for years and years, I am very impatient with comfortable people saying, let's wait.
Right.
Well, of course we can wait because you have a house and you have some food in your refrigerator. And so we have to get out of that speaking from our own privilege and think about those folks that we're trying to serve. So thank you. That's a great way to end this conversation. Thank you all so much for your engagement. I know, again, it's our new normal, but we're going to make the best of it because that's who we are. We are Southwest. I'm so happy. Can't see you all collectively, but I feel your presence. I see your chats coming in. And so I know you're there. So I appreciate you all. This concludes the first portion of today. And I am so excited for what's to come. And you are in for a treat with our speakers. But let's take a 5-minute break. So it is now 10:07. So that's 10:12. I know how to do a little math, count on my finger. Well, now it's 10:13. And so we'll come back at how about we just round it out? Let's come back at 10:15, if that's okay. Come back at 10:15, because all this 10:12 and all that, that's just throwing everybody off. Your clock might be slow. So 10:15, we'll come back, and then we will continue with our program. So hopefully you've enjoyed the first part, and I know you will enjoy the second part. Have a good break. See you back at 10:15. Thank you.
Good morning. Thank you, Dr. Hall, for setting the stage for our two guest speakers. There was a lot of great information that we just had in your session. So our two speakers, their bios are in your packet, so I won't read through those. First, we have Mr. Matthew Alex, who will talk to us about the future of the enterprise. And second, we'll have Mr. Joe Abraham, who will talk to us about the BICE report. So please welcome to the stage, Mr. Matthew Alex.
Hello, everyone. How are you? All right. All right. I love the chat. I love the chat. So before I start sharing, a little bit of the presentation, one, I have to give it to Dr. Hall and Michael and others for being able to facilitate this on this platform. I think this is really telling in terms of what we all will be doing in the future. And I talk about the future of the campus enterprise, you will start to see that sometimes you have to go beyond what you're usually doing or what you're comfortable in, and then really drive the discussion and opportunities that way. So for the folks that don't know me, I know that I walked around, or I virtually walked around to different tables. Thank you for the warm welcomes. I appreciated that. But I wanted to tell you, I live in Chicago. I started my higher ed career as I would say a counselor at a registrar's office at University of Illinois at Chicago. And I fell in love with higher ed, and not because my criminal justice major put me in it. I usually carry my transcript around because I'm a criminal justice major, and I keep that transcript around because those early years of college was not easy for me. I'm a first generation student, things that I had to learn, I had to probably pick up on my own, right? But I also recognize that what I did early in my academics didn't default me. My major didn't default me. I'm a criminal justice major, a proud criminal justice major, and I'll speak to all the ways that criminal justice has helped me move on. My journey has taken me in many different places, and it has brought me to what I would call the future of higher ed, the future of student, the future of learning, because all the things that I had gone through, I know that I would love for my kids to have it a little bit differently. My daughter is 17, my son is 12. The way that they will interact with college is going to be certainly different. And I want to make sure that what I do in market allows them to have that opportunity. So just a little bit of background, I ran a consulting firm for many years, and then it got acquired by Deloitte, and then I eventually ran a large student practice within Deloitte where I really focused on student systems. But I recognized that through that 15 years of working on student systems, that I actually was not impacting the students the way that I believe we really needed to do. So when we think about a student system, we're looking at transactional systems. We're looking at processes. And I wanted to take the opportunity to say, hey, what are we really doing here? And so I had the opportunity to think about future of work and smart campuses, and it's brought me to a place where I started my own firm in April. And I left a real comfort zone, right? I could have easily stayed in my big firm with my practice, but I recognized there was more to what I was doing. And so it brought me here. It brought me in front of you guys. And so part of my discussion here is for you to see that the future is really bright and there's opportunities. but you also have to get out of your comfort zone. And I'm going to talk through that as we go. Dr. Hall, I'll be honest, you probably could do my presentation. We didn't coordinate in any way, but the things I will touch on, you touched on. And you're going to get a little bit of a different perspective, maybe my perspective, my take on it, but certainly aligns to a lot of what we do. So I also love the chat. As you notice, I'm in there chatting. I welcome you to put that in there. I'm going to talk about a lot of things that make people uncomfortable, because we're all creatures of habit. So I'm going to ask a couple things of you. On a sticky note, on a piece of paper, on your iPhone notepad, jot down some fears, some things that are uncomfortable. Jot down things that, you're like, yeah, Matt has no clue. Write it down. Put it there. Because I want us to think about all the fears. I like to lay that out because we need to all talk about it. And then I want you to have on another sheet of paper or another jot or just another paragraph, the opportunities that you see. Because I think if you look at my presentation with fear and opportunity, you're really going to take advantage of what you do. My colleague, Joe Abraham, is going to come right after me, and he's going to talk about the culture of innovation and all that thing. And each of you are built with that, right? And so he's going to talk about it. And we want to tie it together as we approach this moving forward. So I'm going to share my screen. Chrome. All right. So I'm going to start with the future of the campus enterprise. That's the overarching piece. We're going to talk about it in 3 segments. And I'm going to talk about it as future of the campus, future of the institution, future of the academic enterprise, and then future of the campus enterprise. Okay. I'm going to try to do this on a multi-level place. 1 second. Let me just, if I can. I want to be able to put the chat next to me. 1 second. Okay. So if you guys can see the way that I'm navigating, we are in the new normal. And I always like to start with this. And me and Dr. Hall didn't talk about status quo. We didn't talk about any of that before this presentation, but she talked about it. When status quo ends, opportunity starts. And this is powerful because I lived in the world of status quo. I lived at a university that I just did what the policies and procedures did. And I'm going to talk about that a little bit. So when we think about status quo and when it starts to end, there's fear, there's uncomfort, there's a lot of what I would call incumbents, there's a loss of control and resistance. And all of those things hinder the transformation that is needed in the market, that is needed in your institution, that's needed for students. And when you think about the opportunity that it starts, you start to reimagine your campus. You start to transform the way you manage your students, the way you interact with your faculty, the way you innovate. And also, how do you renew, but more importantly, how do you empower? And so that's going to be a telling piece of what we speak about. We are at a tipping point. I think you all recognize it. I think we're at a stage where some schools will have a tough time coming out of the pandemic. And so we're going to speak about that a little bit. I always like to start with 3 numbers. And I always believe numbers tell a story. When we think about the numbers, I'm going to give you 3 numbers. It's 3, it's 41, and it's 400. Let's talk about the first number. 3 is the number of hats that students wear. And this is where I have a lot of faculty who are really uncomfortable when I say that. Students are consumers, they're customers, and they're products. And you may not want to call them customers, you may not want to call them consumers, but they are. And that's how we have to support them. That's how we have to treat them. That's how we have to engage with them. And that's how we have to shape them. And that's going to be an important piece as I speak to a lot of these things in here. 41, put a point in the middle of that. And there is going to be 4.1 million new job opportunities. According to Gartner, AI will create 2.3 new million jobs this year, while eliminating 1.8. So if you combine both of them, there's 4.1 new opportunities for jobs and skills and reskilling that will take place. And think about what Gartner has said. That's just AI. That's just one element of all the digital transformation that's there in market. 400 is 400 times the blink of an eye. And so when I make this statement, I always ask you to go ahead and blink your eye. If you can blink your eye, I want you to imagine that if you think about, hold on, I'm going to go full screen here because Alex is saying go full screen. Hold on one second. Is that better, Alex?
Sorry, Matt. That was just for everybody else. If they needed help seeing.
Oh, got it. I thought it was mine. Sorry, I apologize. All right. So when we think about 400 times the blink of an eye, just blink your eye, and then think about 400 times that speed. That's the amount of data that is processed today at 400 times the blink of an eye. You just have to open up your iPhone and look at it, and it immediately looks at millions of points in your face, and it processes data, and it says, hey, this person can get into this mobile device. We have that type of technology. So we are in a world where data is processing 400 times the blink of an eye. And the reason I want you to understand that is universities and colleges don't process things that quickly. Our turnaround on processes is slow. Yet we live in a 400 times a blink of an eye visual world. Okay?
Now, how does this all tie to the assessment you took a few days ago? And thank you all for those of you that participated. So what I'm going to share with you now really quickly in about 5 or 7 minutes is what I learned while I was doing some research into my peers, business owners, because it seemed like they weren't all wired the same. One person just wanted to make cool stuff. Another person wanted to take over the world. One person started a pizza place and was very happy just running a single location pizza place for their community. And another wasn't happy until they had 600 pizza franchisees, right? What was the difference, and what was drove them to do the things? I found that some entrepreneurs who were running businesses were just all the time hunting, sell, get deals, look at great product. And others who are like, I don't want to talk to anybody. People freak me out. I just want to make good stuff. And so as I was understanding the behavior of people in business and how they made decisions, I found myself doing a little research, doing some surveys, discovering this thing called BOSSY, which is essentially an acronym for what I now call builder, opportunist, specialist, innovator. They're like the 4 voices in the entrepreneur head. And originally the research said, this is only for small business owners. But then we realized this isn't just small business owners, there's an entrepreneur inside everyone, so that even for every single one, some of you are wired to think like a builder. Some of you are wired to think like an opportunist or a specialist or an innovator. And here's why that's interesting, because 70-person leadership team overseeing an organization of over 1,000 employees, it's important for you to know how you're wired or how you make decisions in business, because your decisions may not be the same as the person sitting 2 chairs away from you, and you may look at them like they have a third eye going, why in the world is this person even interested in this? It's because they're wired differently. And as we start to see each other through this beautiful lens, we start to see we can actually complement each other, that the strengths of one are the weaknesses of the other, and so on and so forth.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Joe. This was, oh, wow, very helpful and informative. There are a few questions I want to make sure that we address, and maybe we will just have to send that out in an email. But to your question, I think, Robert, about your assessment, yes, you will get your individual results. I believe that is absolutely what is going to happen. And we didn't get a chance to address your concern or question, Jim, about how will the different quadrants interact. But as we move on with our Reimagine Southwest work, we certainly will have an opportunity to discuss that. And so, Selena, I see you said you haven't received your results. We've not received our results yet, but you will. You will. And Jeannie, in terms of the presentation, I'm not sure about the entire PowerPoint, but we certainly will have opportunities to talk with both Matt and Joe, and we can talk about maybe how we can get some high level tips from them as we go forward. And yes, we are, Melanie, we are recording this, so that may be another way for you to hear and replay this day's presentations. So thank you so much. I hope that you have gotten a lot out of the presentations today, that you felt like it was worthwhile. The whole goal is just for us as a leadership team to come together and to see our opportunities and to see our possibilities, especially as we are in such a culture, external culture of turmoil, and you cannot turn on the news without there being some negative story. But we have to make sure that we keep our eye on the prize, on what it is that we have to do, regardless of if we're online or if we are face to face. The business of the college continues because the issues in our community continue, and our roles continue. And I hope that as you're thinking through today, you're asking yourself, is our why big enough? Is your why big enough? Why you are here? Because as we talked about last year, and we're continuing this year, that is the focus. It's our why, and that drives us. As we talked earlier, and Matt, I'm so happy you put that in the chat when you talked about a license to change. And that is exactly what you are being given, a license to change. We know that there are things that we do at the college that are wonderful, but we also know that there is a lot of room for improvement. But you have the license to change. As leaders, I'm counting on you. I'm counting on your best thinking, your best effort. I'm counting on you to go back to your teams and also give them that license to change and to innovate. That's how we reach our Reimagine Southwest goals. That's how we become even more of an impact, positive impact in our community, but also in our world, in our nation. I really believe. And so when we talk about what do we believe, what do you believe? Do you believe that we can do what we need to do to help our community? Do you believe the best about our students? Do you believe the best about our community? Because that's what's really important. When we talk about working at Southwest, everything comes from our beliefs. And so if we believe that our students can achieve, if we see them from an asset and not a deficit point of view, that's how we will behave. That's how we will act. That's how we will plan. Those are the courses we will offer. That's how we will think. It's what we believe about our students. It's what we believe about our communities. So I ask you after this day to continue that conversation with yourself about what you believe. And I think what you will see is how you have responded is based on how you have believed. And so I thank you for this day. Thank you so much, Matthew Alex. Thank you so much, Joe Abrams. Please, I know I can't see you, but we're giving you a round of applause for today. This has been really wonderful, and I thank you all. I'm looking forward to our work with Reimagine Southwest under the leadership of our CIO, Michael Boyd, and the committees that have already been formed. I'm looking for the work, and I know and I believe that together we can reimagine Southwest. So thank you all. Have a wonderful and safe weekend, and I'll see you very soon. Thank you all. Daphne, Cynthia Graham, everyone that was involved, Lunch Pool, Alex, I want to say thank you to everyone. If I've forgotten you, I'm sorry, and I haven't forgotten you in my heart at all. Thank you all again. Have a great weekend. Thank you all. I see the comments. Appreciate you all.